Hello, welcome to the Sobek Punks podcast, episode 94 of said podcast. Fresh off the heels of watching an entire family of seagulls eat bread.
That was lovely.
I am Dave.
And I am Siobhan. And welcome.
Welcome. There were some baby seagulls, so they were big babies, but
They were big babies. It sounds like you're slighting them. Big babies. But they were massive babies.
Yeah. How does a seagull manage to fit an entire slice of bread into his little beak?
And so quickly. It was quite scary. Quite terrible.
I don't think I've ever seen it done before. I've seen them eat chips.
Yeah.
And, and bits and pieces. Little things.
Things.
But a square.
A massive...
Picture it for me, ladies and gentlemen. A large bird, like I say, large baby bird, with a whole square of bread in its mouth. So it's clutched it with its little beak. And it's just sucking on it, and then all of a sudden, the whole thing is gone. It's the slice of bread is the size of the bird, give or take.
And
your surface area, not weight, not mass.
Just to make it clear, this was an end piece. It wasn't a simple middle piece.
One of these had an end piece. And then they were sort of fighting about it, and then one of them did a little run into the road with his little bread because he was happy with it. But the babies weren't quite as good. But I tell you what, the mum. Just
down
and then
one.
A whole slice of bread.
There you go. Nature Watch with Dave and Siobhan from Hastings.
Well, talking about Nature Watch, last night we also went and watched a Bryan Adams / Bon Jovi covers band.
Yeah.
So we're also fresh off the...
Reckless.
I don't know what, fresh off the bar.
Fresh off the bar.
That was similar to watching nature. What did we make of that?
I thought it was all right, actually. I thought it was pretty good.
Well, that's a full review.
Well, I don't know. I like Bon Jovi songs a lot. I like Bryan Adams songs a lot. And here comes a band that's decided, for some reason, we're going to do both. And the reason can just be it's joy, and quite a lot of people like both those things. Seems to be good enough.
Well, not that many people by the turnout, but
it was an all right turnout.
What I didn't realise, what I would not have been able to realise, is that the man singing, when he sung Bon Jovi songs, I thought, he sounds a bit like John Bon Jovi, actually. When he sung Bryan Adams songs, I thought, he sounds a bit like Bryan Adams, actually. Yeah. Didn't change his voice.
Yeah.
Magic. I would never, well, not magic at all, actually. I just didn't think that those two men sounded very much alike.
Well, no, I can definitely see it. They've both got lovely, beautiful voices. So, and they are kind of similar, but yeah, until it just turns out they're geniuses putting these two things together. Who'd have thunk it?
Well, yeah, but then also separately from that, and we haven't talked about this. I'm about to blow your mind.
Oh God.
He sounded a lot like the horrible little man from the Stereophonics.
Yes.
But so now I'm thinking,
well,
does the horrible little man from the Stereophonics sound like John Bon Jovi and also Bryan Adams, and also have you ever seen all three of them in the same room as each other, and also are they the same man?
Wow, so much to unpack. But I'll start with
not really.
Well, a conspiracy theory that they're all one person. Yeah. And why would you sink?
You heard it here first.
Why would you sink to the lows of being in the Stereophonics if you were Bryan Adams and also?
It would have been your last move as well, wouldn't it? Yeah. You would have already had Living on a Prayer.
Yeah.
You smashed it with Living on a Prayer.
Summer of '69.
You've done Summer of '69. You've already had the longest number one in history.
Yeah.
I don't know if that still stands. But I assume it does. Well, no one buys records anymore, but then charts are confused. Who knows? But let's just say you've had the longest number one in history, and then you think to yourself, let me make one of the worst bands of all time in Wales.
And I'll pretend to be Welsh.
With some blokes that look like they're fresh off the building site.
Yeah.
And you know what? If that wasn't bad enough.
Oh, no.
Let's cover a Rod Stewart song. And... Of course, Rod made a song with Brian and Sting.
Well,
one of the finest ones. They didn't do that one.
No.
No one could do the Sting bit, probably.
Didn't Stereophonics also do a song with Tom Jones?
Probably. They're both Welsh.
Yeah.
I was going to say something awful.
Oh.
No, I didn't. I caught myself.
Wowzers. That was fine.
No one knows what I was going to say.
Off air, David. Tell me off air.
It wasn't going to be that racist against the Welsh. Now, we like to start. Is there anything else we need to say before we kick off proceedings?
Seagull's conspiracy theories about Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams and Stereophonics. I think we've covered it all, to be honest. Don't think there's too much else.
God for that.
Oh gosh, I was not sure we were going to cover all that. I thought how are we going to get that all in? But thank God we did.
Well, we might have blown our beans before the first section because now we have to say something, and it now can't be Seagulls or Bryan Adams not being Bryan Adams and being the little man from Stereophonics.
Kind of screwed now.
What we always do on this podcast is that we start by telling you something that we have done, which has created a sense of, I didn't really say all of the different things that this podcast is about, I don't think, at the start. Transcendence, awe, meaning, and spirituality.
Yes.
It's not got a small s. Let's be realistic.
It's just straight up spirituality at this point.
So, Siobhan, what have you done?
Well, I was going to basically apologise for myself because I feel like I've done a really bad job.
It's about time, if I may say.
Fuck off. No.
I'm glad I'm getting this on the record.
Not to you. I apologise to the people and to myself. No, I've had a stressy... I've allowed myself to get a bit carried away with stress in the last 2 weeks. And I think I think the reason that I've been stressed is because of my work. But you could look at this a couple of ways, because in the last 2 weeks, I don't think I have really prioritised any of what you just said, the having space for meaning, transcendence or spirituality. And I think it's because I've been stressed and busy with work, but maybe my feelings of stress are also, it's a circular thing, maybe because of not prioritising those things that I feel stressed as well. I think it's a bit of a not catch-22, but like chicken and egg. It could be a bit of a mixture of both. So I'm a little bit frustrated by that, but also I think being open to, realising it, I think is part of the step. But one thing that I did want to mention, and I hope it's not too sharing of our private life, is we had a lovely little date day.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this is the thing that brought me my sense of meaning for the last 2 weeks, I would say. Just this one day. Every other day's been terrible. No, I'm joking. We have been really working opposite each other, and we took time to just actually spend some time together, go for a nice dinner. And within all of this is another thing, like there's a meaning within the meaning. We went to see a film. And I'm worried that this was going to be your thing, so apologies if I'm stealing your thunder.
Was it? Fine. We've already established that Dave is going to have to think on his feet sometimes.
Oh! Well...
So bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind for the next however long we talk about this film for, that I am furiously thinking of something else to say.
Well, maybe we can share in it, because mine was going to be, I haven't done anything. And then I think back to that lovely day and that lovely film, and I'm like, no, this brings the sense of meaning. So the film we went to see was The Life of Chuck. Was that what it was called? And now I'm stealing your thing, and now I'm asking you for the details. Horrible, isn't it?
And what was it about?
Yeah, well, you could... no. It's based on a Stephen King novella, I think. Yeah. I guess he would have written it relatively recently. I didn't realise he's still pumping it out.
He turns out at least 2 books a year, I think, over the past... No, definitely a book a year, definitely.
That's crazy, isn't it?
At least. And this one has just come out. I don't know if it's like one that's been around for a while, maybe in a collection, and they've released it as an individual novella to go along with the film. Yeah. Or whether it's brand new. I actually don't know.
When they say novella, is that just a posh word for a short story?
No, it's something that sits... I think there's an official length of amount of words, but I don't know what it is. But it's something that's longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel. It's basically a short novel.
Okay, cool. Well, there we go. Learn something every day.
Petite novel.
Petite novel. Novel petite. Anyway, this film's just come out in the cinema. It's really, 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 really... really amazing, and it's kind of hard. We were talking about it afterwards. It's kind of hard to describe exactly what sort of genre it'll fall into, and in trying to describe it, we will potentially spoil the film. So I don't really want to try too hard. But there's 3 acts to this film, and it's told back to front, and each one kind of takes on a bit of a different genre in a way. And I can't really explain it better than that, because it's really powerful the way that it's done.
Yeah.
But the overarching feeling was just one of loveliness, positivity. It turns out to be a feel-good film, but along the way you have no idea if it will or what it is even aiming for until pretty near the end. But one thing, and I think it does tie to the topic that we're going to move on to, mindfulness, which is specifically about the present moment. One of the take-home messages about this film was about appreciating and realising your present moment and not freaking out about your past or your future, but appreciating what you have there and then. There's many scenes in the film that kind of do this, and it's not just showing you it, but forcing you to be part of it as well, because there's quite elongated scenes that when I was first watching I was like, oh, this is going on a bit long, but the point is to not just see someone enjoying themselves in the present moment, but to also be a part of that by watching this thing and enjoying it in that moment. It's kind of a bit more experiential in that respect. But anyway, it just left me with a real sense of meaning, and a film about finding meaning as well left me feeling like I felt all of the meaningfulness. And I'm saying it terrible. I lost all my words doing it, obviously.
Well, it's hard. It is hard to talk about because, as ever, well, particularly because I think if we talk about the plot, if we talk about it in the context of a film review or something, it would be very difficult not to give away all of the beautiful bits. And I think also that's not what you're trying to describe. So what you're trying to describe is the feeling you got from watching the film, which of course, by the nature and similarly to almost everything that we talk about in this podcast, it's impossible. It
is impossible, and I do think it's definitely it's just one that I think people should go and watch and get all the feels from, because it was I mean, as far as Stephen King goes, it's very much not a horror film. And it's along the lines of, we watched The Green Mile not too long ago, and whilst it's nothing, I mean, story-wise or anything-wise, it's nothing like it at all, but tone-wise, it's kind of not too dissimilar. It's Stephen King, on occasion, does, it's like Stand By Me, that kind of, and probably Shawshank Redemption as well. Every now and again, he is a very good writer. For, it's easy to sort of write Stephen King off in the same way as you might write off, I don't know, like the Rolling Stones or something. If the Rolling Stones release a new album, you just figure, oh yeah, it's just them. There we go, another one.
And that's fine. But he does what he does extraordinarily well. And I think that when he deals with touching subjects or like emotion, it's done in a very specific way. It's quite an old-fashioned way, I think. Probably it's not terribly nuanced. It's not postmodern. It's not how stories are told anymore. I think that's fair to say. And as a result of that, I think within the context of the modern world, it makes them much more effective. And this was extraordinarily effective. There's fantasy elements to it, but it's fundamentally just about what it is to be human, I think. There's death elements to it, and it really reminded me, I've brought up this book before, but there was a book not very long ago called A Beginner's Guide to Dying, which we've talked about in this podcast before, and it's written by a man who is now dead and was about to die when he wrote it. And again, it completely nothing to do with each other whatsoever, but it reminded me quite a lot of that at times. Just a beautiful, wonderful film.
And you're right, something about Stephen King's tone, able to create a sense of soppy meaning without it being a soppy, like, romantic film, if that makes sense.
Well, it's also important to say that obviously he had nothing to do with the film, and he never has anything to do with the films, and yet partly because a lot of, particularly the ones from the 80s, were directed by a handful of people who I don't know how involved he was, but there was a tone to most Stephen King films in the same way there was a tone to his books. I assume that whoever directed this whilst it's very modern in the way it's put together, I think he was aiming for a Stephen King film. Well, I'm doing speech marks.
And I think he's done other Stephen King things.
Oh, okay.
I think he did Gerald's Game, and he did something else that I looked up the other day.
I watched Gerald's Game. That was really good. I mean, that's just basically someone tied to a bed. for the whole film.
No,
And it's brilliant.
made it
Actually,
amazing.
I didn't know that was the same guy.
Yeah, no. So I think he's got an interest in like you said earlier, like the small pool of people doing it in the 80s. I think he kind of wants to take the torch, as it were, and carry on doing Stephen King now. But yeah, no, you're right. I appreciate the tone is not always going to be because of the book, but there is something the way that the way emotion and like that sort of mood and that sort of accessing meaning gets through in some of these stories, I think is specific to Stephen King. It's quite I'd love to know more about him, because it's always a kind of very, I don't know, it's a very like real and powerful, meaningful. I think it's important that it's almost always happening to boys as well, when boys, haven't historically been encouraged to feel their feelings and express them and do that. And true. He actually, they're always presented as not the most like manly ways of experiencing things, but it is manly to experience emotions. It's just, yeah.
Do you know what? That's so funny. I've never thought. I mean, I suppose why would I? It just shows my own ignorance to the privilege of continuously watching white men on screen, I suppose. But I've never really thought about that in the context of Stephen King. But you're absolutely right.
But it always is, isn't it? All those kids that are really going through it. Most of them are men or boys. In this, it's a boy who's really going through it all. It's always, and sometimes there's female characters helping them along. I mean, you could say that in it, the female character is helping the boys get to grips with their emotions and their feelings and what's going on. And in this one, there's a female character helping this boy. Green Mile is all about like a big scary man crying and being really nice to everyone, as well as all these men looking after him. It's just very specifically always, I just think it's really important and really good. And I'd love to know what Stephen King's like in that respect. But yeah, long and short of it, lovely film, lovely day. And in my 2 weeks of feeling really fed up with my job, it was a real pleasure to have this day, and it lifted me up massively.
Date nights aren't really something that we've done very much.
No, we're pretty bad at it.
They're quite that's quite a modern idea. Yeah. Old people who are married to each other and sick of each other going out on a date night every now and again. It's weirdly, date nights, maybe it's just because of the type of things I'm reading and consuming, but date nights seem to have come up in almost every book or article or podcast that I've come across recently. I don't think we necessarily need to say that they're great, but I think as two people that really don't do that very much, and I'm kidding about being sick of each other. I think we have a lovely relationship. So I suppose we've never necessarily felt the need to, and also we've had our entire history as us going out together. Yeah. So it's never been, and maybe that's less so now. So maybe there's a necessity to it. So whereas we would once have gone out at least once or twice a week and got trolleyed, or gone to gigs or whatever, now we do that much less. So actually, there's maybe more of a need to sort of go for dinner and a movie.
I think it's also intention, isn't it? Like we have a lot of days off together, but we're like, oh, let's just chill out, or let's just potter around, or let's just do the same things. And then it can very quickly feel like another day, or you could maybe not appreciate everything in that moment. Whereas there's something about like intending something to be new and novel, even if it's doing what you would normally do. Like you say, we have been out for food quite a lot. We do go to this, or used to go to the cinema quite a lot. So it's not as if it was anything particularly novel, but the intention was, this is now special. This is time, rather than,
And it ritualizes something where you say, this relationship is important to me. Yeah. And we're doing something nice together. Yeah. Which I think is, it is. It's the same thing again. It's like, be careful who you pretend to be, because you are who you pretend to be. You're saying, today we are celebrating our love. Yeah. Let's go and do that. And that sounds like it wouldn't work, but I think it does generally, right? I mean, it sort of, and in some ways it's like the cinema, right? The cinema is a place that you go in order to enjoy a film. So generally speaking, this is certainly my experience anyway, and I think I've heard other people say this, when you sit in a cinema and you watch a film, you concentrate on it more, and you probably enjoy it slightly more. And maybe you could even, if we wanted to really push the point, you could argue that you were being a bit more mindful about it. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're slumped on your sofa and you shove something on the telly, then maybe you take less of it in. Maybe you've got lots of other distractions. Maybe the light's bright or whatever. And there's something about saying, in this cinema has been consecrated as a place for movies. When you come to this cinema, you need to act in a certain way. You need to be quiet. You need to turn your phone off. You need to concentrate on the movie.
Yeah.
Afterwards, there might even be some expectation that you might have a conversation about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's an exciting, there's all sorts of rituals that go on going to cinema, right? Watching trailers beforehand and then having a conversation about the trailers and saying, I wouldn't mind going and see that film, whatever.
Yeah, the food, like, it sounds pathetic, but like there's specific foods.
We, of course, we bought our own healthy cookies. But having popcorn is very much a ritual at the cinema. So
it's strange. Yeah,
it's just making a space for a thing, and then everybody's made the space for the same thing. And in a lot of ways, maybe that's what. Same goes for dinner, right? Going out for dinner to a restaurant, very ritualized. Yeah, that's why dinner and a movie is such a classic date, probably.
Yeah, it works. Like history has shown that works.
History has
shown. No, but
the ancients used to go to the cinema and watch the early Stephen King movies.
But yes. Well, so sorry I stole yours.
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't know. Mine isn't really one thing. It's maybe two things, one of which is much more practical than the other. But in talking about Stephen King, I've been thinking quite a lot recently about kind of enjoying what you might describe as standard things.
Oh, yeah.
My gut has always pushed me towards finding, I suppose, alternative things, the weirder end of things, stuff that doesn't stick to a playbook or whatever, and that's good, and I think has been great and has meant that I've discovered loads of different things that I probably wouldn't otherwise. But as a result of that, I've definitely always shunned anything which is, I suppose, mainstream or normal, basically, I suppose. And I read something, and I cannot remember where I read this, but at some point I read something about stories and about how one of the reasons why stories are so standardized, like the romantic comedy story that we all know what to expect, or the slasher film story we all know what to expect, is exactly that there is something within our psyches, whether this is, or within our souls, you could even say, depending on how you want to look at it. But if you want to look at it in our psyches, it's kind of something that comes out of the society that we've grown up in, and the way that we're all kind of parented and what have you. And not parented just by parents, but by society and culture in general. That these things are, it's kind of a ritualized thing. Again, these things are like deep in our souls. So there's a reason why the romantic comedy plot plays itself out over and over and over again, and people keep going back and watching them. It's because of something within us that sort of needs that. And I'd never thought of it in that context. I'd always just thought, aren't people dull? They all just want the same thing over and over again. And here's Dave, he's outrageous. He's looking for something, some improvisational art film or something.
It's so true. If you're always going for the thing that's not normal, or not the norm, or the what the majority enjoys, then you might be missing out on something that's fundamentally human. You might be estranging yourself from what it is to be a human being.
Yeah,
which is weird,
because I think that's true.
You would never think that if you're thinking, oh gosh, following the herd or any of that. Like, you want to be individual, you want to be thinking widely, you're gonna miss the thing. You're gonna miss something maybe that you actually need. Yeah,
interesting that you dropped the individuality bomb, because it's that, isn't it? It's that I think I've always viewed the world through. It's very important that I am me. Yeah, that it's very important that everything I do is like curated very carefully by me, and I am the ruler of these things. And of course, that suggests, I've never thought of it in this context, but that suggests that I am more knowledgeable. I've never thought of it in this context, but fundamentally that's what you're doing, isn't it? When you're saying I'm an individual and I'm going to do all of the things that I think are right, you're saying I know what is right. Yeah. And of course we word it in such a way that says, I know what is right for me, and then we can't argue with that, and everyone has to agree with it. And of course that's true, and I don't care. But ultimately what you're saying is I know better than everybody else. And actually, in reality, probably you don't. And probably, you know, the storylines, most of which are based on ancient myths or religious stories or things from time past that we don't even know, there's a reason that they've hung around for potentially thousands and thousands of years. And maybe the romantic comedy storyline isn't one of those, but to some extent it is. But definitely the stories that are based on mythical ideas, which is most movies that you ever go, you know, the hero's journey being the classic one. Yeah. There's a reason why that's so ingrained in our psyches and ingrained in our souls.
We come back to it over and over.
Yeah. And so just Dave being like, nah, I'm into really wild things.
I go against the grain, man.
Actually, he's just missing out on vast swathes of life.
Yeah.
And so I've been, I suppose I've been trying to enjoy more normal things, and I don't think as a result of that, but as a separate thing, but in relation to Stephen King's movie, I've basically spent the last more or less month on the edge of tears. Yeah. And I don't really know what to say about this. I mean, again, this wasn't really going to be my thing, but it's just something that came up while we were talking about that movie, because that movie, there's 2 dance scenes in it, guys, and I don't know why, but dancing apparently is just, you know, really riles me up in the eye ducts.
And just to point something out to you, this isn't me getting at you.
Me? I thought you meant the listener.
No.
Listen, you lot.
No, specifically you. There is something we've watched in the past. I can't remember what. Numerous things where dancing has come up, and I definitely remember you making quite a point. It's funny because I think it's like doth protest too much, and it goes back to your
everybody knows this is
trying hard not to.
Yeah,
but
I've already admitted
you have
it.
so poo-pooed specifically dancing scenes, which is really interesting.
Listen, I've been pursuing joy for most of my life.
Well, there's so much I now want to go back to.
Well, let's not
just to drag your emotional soul through.
The idea of
this
isn't for you to get one over on me.
No, I want to watch all these dances
I was trying to be honest.
No, I love it.
With the ladies and gentlemen at home. But yeah, I think it's. I mean, we haven't really. You know, I touched a few episodes ago about prayer and things, and it has something to do with a journey that I'm on, which at some point we'll cover on this podcast, but we're definitely not going to do it now. Right. But I think it has something to do with that, and probably has a lot to do with a lot of different things. But I think ultimately, and it probably relates to mindfulness and relates to meditation and things as well, there is something that has happened somewhere deep inside of me, which has opened up the sort of emotion which I just have been sitting on or caging up, or I don't know what metaphor I want to use for it. Whether I said this, whether this is...
and it's got something over its mouth and it's been screaming and it's crying in a cupboard. Like a weird little hostage. Yeah,
this the little 12-year-old boy in my heart, but which we've talked about before. But you know, I'm sure I've said this at some point. But you know, I haven't cried a tear, or I hadn't cried a tear since I was 12 years old. I think I was the first year seniors, so I think I was 12 years old. And I won't be too specific, but I was basically told stop doing that. And having been told to stop doing that a lot, I think I was a bit of a weeper when I was younger. Turns out now I've let the 12-year-old boy out of my heart. It turns out I am. But anyway, so I went through my entire adult life, just even if I wanted, I just couldn't cry. It just wasn't going to happen. And then the cat died, and then I had a little sob because of the bouncing souls. That's a whole other story which we may have told or not.
And the Raven Age.
and then slow. No, this has been a slow process. So then, music started doing it, and now at this point, I mean, my God, I keep joking. I'm just continuously on the edge. It's quite a nice feeling.
But I think it's really lovely. I think there's something about, you linked it to mindfulness and, you know, experiencing emotion readily. And it's something about being present, and it's about, you know, realizing what's there in front of you in that moment when it's a beautiful thing. Whereas the past, you've been confronted with a beautiful thing, but you've got something holding you back from the past. You've got, you know, the little voice in your head saying you can't cry, even if it's not conscious.
Quite a big voice in my head.
That massive, massive booming voice of certain elders in your family who are screaming, "Don't cry." But those are all things that stop you being in touch with reality. So for whatever reason, and it's not worth unpacking here, but it's so multifaceted. You found various ways to connect with reality and to lose those ingrained things, whether they're old mental formations, as the Buddhists would call it, or old traumatic things, if you want to go down trauma route, or just anything that is not conscious to you and you kind of are consciously aware of, but it is all playing on your subconscious. But anyway, just breaking through all those things, getting more in touch with reality, and then turns out reality is really emotional, and you're there now. Which is good.
Is it Kalapas?
Sankaras.
Oh, that's Sankaras.
Yeah.
What's Kalapas then?
I was going to ask you that because I've desperately looked for it in my book.
Maybe we made up Kalapas, but
no,
anyway.
Kalapas are something, but I think they're linked. I think they're linked together. I think Kalapas. We'll get to it, but I think they're linked together. Lovely Goenka used to say both words.
But I think it's one of those things that, to me, and sorry, I mean, this is really sort of, I don't know. I can only talk about myself, so I'm just talking about myself here.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like this. It shows how, having done all of this meditation, and also then sort of really all the stuff that we've been talking about, this Eightfold Path and where it's gotten me anyway, without really it wasn't like I sat down and said, you know what, next year I really want to have a good cry. What can I do to get there? It wasn't even, I hadn't even thought, it was not a thing in my head.
Yeah.
And I think that about so many different things, that by just sitting on a mat and concentrating on my inner world, there is something that's happened which I can now see proof of.
Yeah.
So you don't we've talked about this before, but you don't experience that in the moment. You might feel a bit more relaxed. You might when we went on the silent retreat, you come back and you feel really full of it.
Yeah.
And you've only got to go back. I mean, we recorded an episode a couple of days after we got back, and I'm sure I've not gone back and listened to it, but I'm sure we had to do. Yeah. So if you've not listened to that and you're interested in what I'm saying, and you want to hear two people who are high as kites, talk about how wonderful everything is, then go back to that episode. But all of those things are true in the moment. But the idea, and I remember like hearing about this idea that it will actually sort of change aspects of your life which are more concrete, or change aspects of your life that you might not even know are a problem, or you might have an idea of a problem but you don't really know what that problem means or whatever. In the way that, like you say, I'm not describing my own thing as trauma necessarily, but that traumatic, I know this intellectually, that trauma, you don't necessarily know the way in which trauma is messing with you. Right? I mean, that's just, so you can't say, this happened to me when I was younger and therefore this. You can after a bit of psychotherapy, and there's ways of working it out, I'm sure. But even then, it's only really a best guess. And
you've just laid it out, but you haven't
done anything
to consciously
about
deal with it is really strange, because you kind of...
I don't know if it's even...
You
I'm
can't
sure
really
it is
do it. It's kind of, you got to go... I think you'll get into this, but you go around it and you trust the process you're doing will somehow unpick it, even though... You probably can't intellectually say doing this made that go away. No,
but it definitely did.
But it does.
I know it did.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. And there's something as well about, and maybe this is also having a bit more insight into what's going on in my own inner world, which has probably come from this journey as well. Is that I know that this thing has had an effect on this thing.
Yeah.
Even though when I started thing A, I had no idea that it was going to have any effect on thing B. In fact, that thing B was completely out of my consciousness. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting. And the two, and again, we've said this type of thing before as well. The two things are completely unrelated to each other.
I remember it's bringing up two things, and they're both from when we were on the silent retreat, the Goenka thing. But I read it over and over in mainly Tao and stuff. Two things. One is, when Goenka was speaking, he did very explicitly say, like, these things, what you're doing will bring up he calls it old sankaras, which is mental formations and things that make you cling or revert to things that are your default modes. And
possibly kalapas.
And maybe kalapas. I cannot remember what kalapas are. They might be the same thing. And he said they will bring it up and then it will go away, and eventually you will cleanse yourself of them, but you have a really huge formation. You know, you've got a store of these things. And so the idea of meditation is you'll bring up old ones and dispel them, but also you'll hopefully prevent yourself making new ones. And it all sounds a kind of bit out there and weird. And also you just think that's so abstract. How does doing this one thing do that? But yeah, like you say, it's living in it and realizing that things have kind of dwindled away. The other thing to note is, and this is what comes up with the Tao a lot, is the way that can be spoken is not the way. And I'm paraphrasing it wildly, but it's all this, you know, if you go in with the intention of, I'm going to meditate so that I cleanse myself of past traumas and cleanse myself of this and feel like this and feel like that, you've almost missed the point. You've kind of got to sit there and do it for the sake of doing it, for so much other reasons. And anything that comes up is what's meant to happen. Whether you manage to get rid of bad habits or something that's preventing you emotionally or anything like that, like you can't go in, you almost can't have that intention from the beginning. You've kind of got to be blanker than that. You've just kind of got to go in with I just want to be present. And that, like, if you go right back to, I just want to be present, I want to feel what's really real, that's the whole point of the meditation that we learn. And I think we're going to cover this a lot more in a moment. If you do that, then by default, you'll feel what's really there. You'll, you know, and in your case, you're able to emotionally connect to things and have these feelings towards things without the preconceptions, without the past, someone telling you not to do that, because you're actually connecting to what's real. But you didn't go into it going, oh, I hope that I get rid of these things. You're going into it just, you know, I'm going to meditate just to be in touch with reality. And being in touch with reality is,
to be honest, I went into it thinking to myself, 2 weeks of silence.
Yeah, I know.
Amazing.
It was so easy to sell it to you. You were like an immediate yes. I knew it would be good, but you were like, 2 weeks of silence, yes. Hilarious that you think you can do it. I'll watch you from the other side of the room as you get carted out screaming.
I didn't know there was going to be another side of the room. I thought I'd be able to watch you close up. Yeah, but I think, and the interesting thing there as well, again, not to sort of talk about it too much, but is that all religion does that, but in completely different ways.
Yeah.
In prayer, you might be asking, you might even think to yourself, oh God, I haven't cried and I really would like to cry, so I'm going to ask God to help me cry, right? But ultimately, in a meditative way, prayer is doing exactly the same thing. It's making you concentrate on something other than yourself. It's making you step outside of yourself and look inside of yourself kind of at the same time, which I think ultimately is sort of what meditation does. And therefore other things are going to happen that are completely separate. So you also might be saying, you know, please let me have a good day, or please let, I don't know, my brother find a job or something. But that's happened, you know, that's a real thing as well. But you're also going through these mental processes that are kind of cleansing you of all but possibly the things that Goenka call kalapas, or maybe we call kalapas.
Yeah, I know.
We just made them up. I don't know. But you know, but there's so many things like that. It's why it's exactly what rituals do, right? So rituals, or like certain types of rituals, physical ones, are doing that exact thing, but through physical means. You're standing up for long periods, or you're doing very specific movements, or whatever it is. It's like the physical equivalent of meditation. Yeah. In some ways, and maybe this is what we're going to get to, everything is meditation. If you're being mindful whilst you're doing it.
100%.
So, shall we move on
yes.
to the 7th episode, the 7th installment,
the 7th step
of our Eightfold Path, Noble Eightfold Path,
the Noble Eightfold Path,
which it is right mindfulness.
Right mindfulness is at the heart of the Buddha's teachings. When right mindfulness is present, the 4 noble truths and the 7 other elements of the Eightfold Path are also present. When we are mindful, our thinking is right thinking, our speech is right speech, and so on. Right mindfulness is the energy that brings us back to the present moment. To cultivate mindfulness in ourselves is to cultivate the Buddha within, to cultivate the Holy Spirit. That's Thich Nhat Hanh there, with his interpretation of what right mindfulness is. Just to be very clear, he's got a very long description of mindfulness. He's placed it a lot earlier in the path than is traditional. Traditional is for it to be the 7th point, like we've done it. He puts it at number 3 and pretty much says it's the thing that like links everything together, and really wants to like say how important it is. But some of the other bits that he mentions, the Sanskrit word for mindfulness, smriti, means remember. And mindfulness is remembering to come back to the present moment. The Chinese symbol for it is still the same. It says now and mind or heart. So the heart and the mind of now. So it's just to remember. The main thing with mindfulness is whatever practice you use in order to be present and everything that flows from that.
One of the problems I see these days is folks trying to secularize Buddhism by removing the mindfulness part and presenting it as a thing in and of itself. Of course, being mindful is not a bad thing, but Buddhism is a fully formed system of which mindfulness is just one part. The other aspects of Buddhism aren't just arbitrary. They exist for a reason. Carving mindfulness out and trying to practice it without the other stuff might not work out so well. So that's fundamentally what the Eightfold Path is. Yeah,
and that comes up in every Buddhist book that I've read, but specifically the Goenka and the Thich Nhat Hanh ones. They mention that in order to do mindfulness, you have to do the threefold practice, which we've mentioned before, which is sila, samadhi, and panya, which is moral practice, concentration, and wisdom. And Goenka fits all of the Noble Path into these three things. I don't think it's just Goenka. I think that is a Buddhist. That's what the Buddha said, but he spells it out really clearly in his book. And very specifically, you cannot have mindfulness without the precepts, without the moral practice underpinning it all, which I think is what Brad Warner's getting at. It's when people remove the mindfulness bit without understanding where it comes from and where it's situated in the Eightfold Path, you lose the point of it. It becomes an egocentric activity for betterment, as opposed to, well, actually, it's about losing your ego and becoming present in the moment so you can best serve other people and best realise what's going on in the world.
As I think we said on the last episode, Hitler was a really mindful Nazi. But that's not... He was one of the best Nazis, but that's not... Just because he was doing mindfulness of Nazism really well.
Yeah.
He's ignored all of the other paths.
Yeah.
And therefore is not doing right mindfulness.
Exactly.
Even though his mindfulness may... I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming. But, he was pretty good at doing what he did. It's just what he did was terrible.
But it's so true. This is what the Buddha mentions really early on, and Thich Nhat Hanh mentions it really early on in his chapter on mindfulness, is that it's about attention, and you can have worthy attention and non-worthy attention. And it's about using the rest of that Eightfold Path to delineate what you're going to attend to. But you do it through the practice of... Like, it's all interlinked. You learn a practice of mindfulness to realise what's really real, to then be able to focus your attention on the things that matter and not the things that don't. Which is why
one of the reasons why this sort of new secularized mindfulness, particularly when it comes to big business and like corporate mindfulness, and Buddhist monks going and teaching, bankers how to be mindful so that they won't be as stressed and they can do their job better. If you're doing that to people who aren't doing right livelihood, then you're just encouraging them to be better at doing something which is wrong.
Yeah.
So mindfulness in that context, I think, can be negative.
Yeah.
It can, like I say, it can make Hitler do really well at being a Nazi.
Yeah.
But that's not good for the world.
Yeah, 100%. And we've covered this with right view and with right livelihood and with, with all the other things. If one of those things are missing, you're not really... And of course, you might not have it all down and having that intention and having that awareness of what you are capable of doing in that moment, given your current situation. Like, again, some people can't afford to change their job to fit their, the new moral path they want to follow. But it's about being aware of where you're at the minute. And if the opportunity comes to change, using those moments or finding ways to be mindful and to have right attitude and to right, view and speech within your job. But you don't get that if you remove mindfulness from the path and... Like you say, forget that the other things are really important.
Yeah, and there's another side to that, which is the opposite way around as well. By doing the other aspects of the Eightfold Path, you open your life up to be able to be mindful.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
To some extent. So if you're not to continuously make everything Christianized, but I mean, it is quite a good... It's kind of in the same way as sin works, right? So if you don't do right speech or you don't do right action... they're going to be getting in the way of your ability to be mindful. So there is something about leading a relatively pious life. Maybe pious isn't a very good word, but a relatively like clean life, if you like. If you're filling your brain up with loads of stress continuously, or if you're filling your brain up with unpleasantness, or you're watching loads of porn, or you're watching loads of rubbish TV or something, then that's all going to be affecting your ability to be mindful, both in that moment, because you're probably not being mindful because you're doing loads of somebody, again, I keep forgetting who, but like trash culture. We might have talked about that idea before as well. The equivalent of, the equivalent of fast food.
Yeah. But it's also, I think of this, it's really terrible example I'm going to give, but
don't worry, I've already used it.
The lady who I go to for occasional facials, she gives all of this advice and how to, best look after your skin and what to use, what products to use and all this other stuff. But she's made little like cards that she can give you. But there's a huge one where she's really honest and just says, there is no point doing any of this, though, if you drink, if you don't look after what you eat, if you're smoking, if you're going into the sun without SPF. So she's just saying, like, you might think you're doing all the right things by coming to me, having a facial, spending money on all the skin products that I tell you to buy. But she's like, but if you're not allowing, like, you don't think of your skin when you're eating, drinking, smoking, going out in the sun. But she's like, because they don't seem connected. But she's saying like all these things are really interconnected, and so in order to really actually excel in this area that you want to excel in, you actually it needs to be a part of all of your life, and you need to kind of just be a healthier person in order to have healthier skin, which I know that's a really kind of weird
it's not
metaphor,
weird at all, is it?
It's not weird, but like, I don't know,
it sounds weird in the context of the world that we live in, but it's not weird at all. I mean, that's literally sense. And
I guess this is, we've talked about this loads with regards to gut health. Like we've done gut health at the same time as being a little bit interested in spirituality. And these two things have kind of just like speedballed each other into this thing where you don't really know why you feel so well, but it's impacting everything. I was saying the other day, my nails are so incredibly long at the minute. I've not been taking supplements for that. I'm not particularly aiming to have, the aims aren't so specific. I've just been like, let's just following your footsteps and just having a slightly healthier life, and all of these other things come out of it afterwards. It's about not having those things as the goal. It's just being more broad than that and having a better life.
But the culture that we live in doesn't encourage that at all. No. And I mean, this is pure capitalism as well. Going back to sort of what you were talking about in the first place there, what we're told by adverts and by the TV and by pretty much and social media and everything else pretty much is you can solve these things by buying this other thing. Yeah. So therefore it would be normal to think I can eat McDonald's every day, but if I take a multivitamin, that'll be fine. Yeah. Or, I can go and sit in the sun. I mean, how many people, the sun came out quite recently and you see people walking around burnt to a cinder and they've presumably put a load of after sun on themselves or something. But it's like, well, no, the sunburn's done its damage. Yeah. That might take the edge off the pain, but it's not really going to do anything. And so, but that's what we're told. Yeah. I think every message, I mean, and worse, I mean, every message is something along the lines of, oh, do you want to be happy? Buy this car, this,
and you'll
whatever.
Be happy in 7 days, like so quick, just doing this one thing.
Well, that's also where podcasts come in, so I mean, not this one, of course, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course not.
But or self-help. The whole self-help industry is that, isn't it? Yeah. It's do this one thing, and you will be happy, like you say, in 7 days. Yeah. And that is just not how. And we all know. Yeah. There's no one's stupid and thinks, oh wow, this one's going to work. Yeah. This diet, I've done 50 diets, and I'm still fat. Yeah. But this diet will be the one. Yeah. No one thinks that. But the problem is we're so brainwashed really into believing that something being advertised to us is genuinely true. That's capitalism, and that is the society that we live in, and I think that's only getting worse.
Definitely.
It's bizarre. I think it's just got worse. I could have said this exact same thing when I was a teenager, back in the early 30s. But, you know, I could have said it decades ago and it would have been true then, but it's much more true now.
I mean, this is the point of things being so simple and to hand and not having to have to strive for anything is, we miss all of this. We just expect things to be quicker and quicker and quicker and more available and solved really quickly. And it's like, actually, the point of things like a mindfulness practice and situating yourself back in this Eightfold Path is to not just relieve yourself of needing a quick fix, but relieve yourself of being someone who needs a quick fix. So not just the need, but also going really far back and being like, actually, what do I really want? What's real? And I think it's just going back much more, a few more steps. And this is where the kind of changing of mental formation and sankharas is, as it's said in Buddhism, it's just naming something that's wildly abstract. I don't think you even need to do that. I think it's just trusting that doing something really basic and grounding and bringing yourself in real touch with reality will eventually address all of those things. And it sounds strange. It sounds really abstract, but you know, you just said we've lived it, and you're living proof of it right now that things have changed, and all you've done is sit and be and really get in touch with reality on a regular basis for a proper amount of time.
Well, it's something about slowing down as well, isn't it? So what we're talking about in the context of the society at large is that basically the message is buy this thing and it will do this thing, whether it really will or not, and generally it won't. But also it's about speed. So like you say, you know, do this thing and it will take 7 days and then you'll be sorted. And so everything is always about getting things done as quickly as possible. And of course that doesn't work, like you say. And so you need longer. But so with mindfulness, by just the default of doing stuff slowly, and we talked about hurry, I think, on the last episode or in the last couple of episodes, which is a very similar idea. It's like if you eliminate hurry from your life, if you get up a few hours earlier so that your mornings aren't stressed, and obviously this is impossible for some people and some people's lives don't allow it, but you can always make your life better. So if you're like super stressed, you've got 3 kids and you're working long hours at work or whatever, no, you can't meditate for an hour a day, but you could definitely slow down a bit in some version of your life.
Get up 5 minutes earlier and go outside for 5 minutes of fresh air. Yeah.
But so by being mindful in any way, what it does, and this is true of just meditation generally, or anything, any spiritual practice, is it just slows you down so that you can you're then slightly slower than the society around you. So then you can start to see, oh, hang on a minute, these 7 days isn't going to work. Yeah. You know, this thing is obviously a nonsense.
I mean, when we learned our Vipassana meditation, Goenka was like, yeah, you might not even get it in this lifetime. You're like I'm not even aiming for something in my own life. And you can think what you like about that, whether that's true or not. But I like the meaning behind that is it's a slow going thing, but it's worth doing.
I think that's maybe where the secularized version of mindfulness can be useful, but again it depends very much on your intention and your effort and what have you. In as much as you know more than me about this, but my understanding, my experience of secular mindfulness, which was just doing a little mindful book and having a go at meditation years ago now, and a bit at work and things like this. I've had various experiences but never really done any of them. Is that a lot of the thing, it says things like, when you're brushing your teeth, just really be there. You know, really experience the brushing of your teeth. Really try and feel all of the sensations. Or when you're washing up, it's all these sorts of... And these things are great in a lot of ways, because if they're things that we all have to do. Yeah. You're going to be there for a period of time, even if it's a short period of time. So why not? Why not be mindful? And, so when you're washing up, just feel all of the experiences, feel what the water on your hands, this sort of stuff. Now the only problem with it is, I suppose, is that it goes nowhere. It's empty. The good thing about it is potentially in some minor ways, if you can really stick to it, and you've got to be quite disciplined and you've got to do it for the vast majority of things you do in your life, which is hard, is that it might slow you down enough to start seeing a little bit through the messaging that you're sort of getting from society. But the problem is that, and this is why the secularization of it doesn't really work, is that it's fine if you suddenly get to a point, and I did this, and I've talked on the podcast about this, where you get to a point where you enjoy the washing up.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of you that sort of looks forward to doing it.
Yeah, but then clinging.
Well, yeah, of course.
You're clinging.
Well, yeah, all right. Yeah. But I'm not even talking about that. But I just mean you can get to a point where some of the chores that maybe once upon a time were frustrating to you become non-frustrating to you, and that's going to be that as tiny as it is a massive step in making your life go from being a place of misery to a place of less misery. At least. But it doesn't lead anywhere because there's nothing else going on top of it.
I think my experience of secular mindfulness, I joined I think there was a mental health charity, and I absolutely can't remember which one, which I got given a free mindfulness course, access to a mindfulness course with the expectation that
nurses, you're not going to get a pay rise for 5 years.
It wasn't because of that.
Here's free access to a rubbish mindfulness website.
It was actually to I taught it to, I was doing cheerleading at the time, and I taught it to the cheerleaders that we had as part of, it was getting out of work.
I knew you back then, Siobhan.
Yeah.
You were the last person that I needed to have lessons from in mindfulness. Nowadays, yes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, yes. Back then.
But do you know what I was doing? It was a 30-day course, and this is the problem. It's selling mindfulness as a thing that can be learned in 30 days, and then at the end, you'll be amazing at it. And what it actually taught was loads of different ways to do things mindfully. But what it misses entirely is the slow down practice of way less than that I think you need to learn in order to then apply it. So mindfulness always comes in with exactly what you just said. Oh, you're doing this activity. You already do this activity. Find a way to do it mindfully. But
and again, just to be clear, there's not really anything wrong with doing that. I hope I made that clear, that I wasn't really bad-mouthing that.
It is perfect, but I think there is something to be said for, and this is what Buddhism kind of hammered home, is you've got to have a routine practice that isn't part of your other daily routine already. Like, it isn't taking one of your... Like, that comes later. If you have a routine practice of dedicated meditation in a mindful manner, the ability to be mindful will eke into other things. When we went on the 10-day retreat, it's not until day 7 and 8 that you're expected to do it all day. So, I mean, you're doing 14 hours of sitting down practice anyway.
Every day is the same.
Yeah. You're already doing a ton of like formal sit down practice. But then on day, 7 and 8, when you've been there long enough, they say, right, now go and do other things mindfully. But you had to do all that practice first. And I do think that that's important. I think secular mindfulness just jumps straight to, just being mindful is just so easy. All you got to do is just be there. So just, when you're doing that, just really be there, really feel it. But already I remember doing it. It'd be like, gosh, am I doing it enough? And all the things that like creep into your brain are there, and it distracts you, and then you're not really doing it. But then at the end of 30 days, you've done 30 days of mindfulness, you should be really good at it by now. And then you're like, well, actually, I feel completely dog shit. I'm not sure I've done it at all. And then lo and behold, you never do it again.
Well, that's true of just meditation full stop, though, as well, in the secularized way. Because, again, most of these are dressed up in some sort of version of do this for 7 days or do this for 30 days and you'll feel better. One of the things I noticed more than anything else in reading, and have noticed in the past as well, in reading around Buddhism generally, is that each of the Eightfold Path has quite, there's a ton of literature about each one. But if you read a book and it goes through the Eightfold Path, the mindfulness chapter is always way longer than all the other chapters. And to some extent, I don't know how much it's going to merge, but so next week we're doing right concentration, and that's another one that always has loads written about it. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that, and the reason is because they're really difficult things to explain. In fact, you could argue that they're completely impossible to explain. Yeah. And this is the problem with secularizing anything, is that by default, if you're buying something, you need to have it explained to you, and you basically need to go from not being able to do something to winning. Now I've done it. And that's
in 30 days, if possible.
Even in a year or something. The point is it's kind of similar. We say this all the time, but a lot of the stuff that we try and talk about on this podcast is stuff that you just can't put into words.
The ineffable.
But it's very important to appreciate that fact. And secular mindfulness does not appreciate that fact.
No.
It doesn't say, for example, you're probably not even going to get good at this in this life.
Yeah.
That's definitely not what...
That's very anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
Like,
So, but ultimately, that's actually what you need to hear.
Yeah.
And you need to deal with that. And, you know, and
Yeah.
meditation fundamentally, the instruction, there are always instructions of different styles of meditation, and there are ways to do it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's just sitting down, shutting up.
And to quote Brad Warner.
Sorry, I quoted Brad Warner and I changed my T's into a D then. It was like I'd turn my chair backwards.
Oh,
put my cap on
backwards. But yeah, and I think this is where it's, I mean, some people say, is Buddhism a philosophy? Is it a religion? This is where it does border into the religious.
I don't think it borders,
well, no,
way.
but this is
full on a religion.
But this is the thing that makes it a religion. It's having faith that the thing you're doing is worth doing, even if you possibly see no benefits to it immediately and maybe no life-changing, dramatic benefits during your life. It's the same as faith. You know, people who believe in an afterlife will never consciously potentially know if that's true or not, but they're going to live their life as if there is one for, you know, just because. And there's tons and tons and tons. I am absolutely simplifying it, but
be careful who you pretend to be, because you are who you pretend to be.
Exactly.
Sorry, just for the second time this episode, and probably the 50th time.
But it's so true. I can... And just going back to what you're saying about mindfulness being the biggest chapter in most people's books, the Thich Nhat Hanh book, he talks about in the Buddha's teachings, the heart of the Buddha's teachings, the Eightfold Path has a chapter per thing, and all the others are about 5-6 pages long. This one's 20 pages long, and it goes through the 7 miracles of mindfulness, the 4 establishments of mindfulness, the Sutta Sanapati, whatever it's called, I can't remember. There is fucking tons. The 5 aggregates. There's so many different things, and this is where people get a bit confused and a bit like, what the fuck?
But you get confused because it's confusing.
Exactly.
And it's confusing because it's worth your time.
And it can be summed up by just saying it's remembering to be present. And it can also be an entire book. He's written one called The Miracle of Mindfulness.
Well, and not just him. I mean, how many Buddhist books, let's ignore the secular side of this. I mean, how many words have been spent on what mindfulness is?
Exactly. Ridiculous amounts.
And does anyone actually know? I mean, yes, but only through experiential ways.
Exactly. And all of these books are just different ways to... This is what I really appreciate about Buddhist writings, that I liken to... cues at the gym as well. They're going to be, you can be told the same thing over and over and over again, but there will be the tiniest little difference and nuance to one of those ways that will resonate with you about a very specific thing. And yeah, at the gym I have this, someone can tell me 1,000 times how to do a technical skill and I can get it wrong, and then someone will describe it ever so slightly different. I'll be like, oh my God, I now know what you mean. And it's the same with Buddhism and the same with mindfulness. That's why there's so many books, because to someone that will make sense, and to everyone else it might be like, you know what, they're just saying the same thing over and over again. I think I kind of get it, I think I don't. And then there'll be that one bit that you go, do you know what, actually no, that little sentence resonates with me. But like you say, it's everyone trying to explain something that's incredibly simple but also incredibly complex and is experiential, so it's really hard to describe. But
I think cues are a really good example. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how CrossFit works, but I presume cues is a CrossFit way of, the cult of CrossFit's way of saying, someone explaining to you how to do a
and like
thing.
Weightlifting, so it's like if I want you to squeeze that particular muscle, if I say squeeze that muscle, you might be like, what? I don't really get it. But if you say jump,
right,
or if you say put more into your heels, I don't know, that works differently.
At some point it gets through, but but again, going back to it, it's experiential again, isn't it? You don't actually know how to do that until you've done it.
Yes.
So and in that context, probably not that I do it or have ever done it, so I'm talking, about something I don't understand. So please do tell me if I get this wrong. But if you're going to the gym, until you do something, physically do it, and your body gets to know how to do it,
100%,
you don't know how to do it.
Exactly.
And I would argue it's exactly the same for meditation, exactly the same for mindfulness, exactly the same for everything. If you do any ritualized practice or any religious practice or any spiritual practice or anything, you're not just doing it with your brain. You could argue you're doing it with your soul, and some people will say you don't have a soul and we're just a load of
meat.
Yeah, meat and whatever. but we are, even if you think that we're just meat, and I don't, but even if you think that we're just meat, you don't
Muscle
just
memory.
do it
Yeah.
you do it with your gut,
Yeah.
you do it with your entire body.
Yeah.
And so that's easy to see in the context of a physical act like lifting a weight. So of course you do literally do that with your body and muscle memory and this sort of stuff. But I really believe that, I mean, there is a physical element to meditation, of course, but I really believe that there is something similar going on in what I would call your soul, what you can call whatever you want, I don't mind. But there's something going on which is beyond just thinking a thought.
Yeah.
You're not thinking to yourself, I am going to be mindful. You are when you're doing the washing up to some extent. But even then, if you do the washing up mindfully, the first few times you do it, you're thinking to yourself, am I doing this right? What's going on?
Exactly.
What's happening here? Am I experiencing everything? Have I actually experienced everything? What's
Exactly.
happening? It's only once you get to a point where you no longer think to yourself, I'm mindfully doing the washing up.
Yeah.
And you just find yourself mindfully doing the washing up. You can't explain what mindfully doing the washing up is.
And so this is also another area I'm aware that we're being quite vague in that.
It's a vague subject. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's a vague subject.
We haven't actually explained the practice of mindfulness and the practice of a mindful meditation. And I think that's quite deliberate because we have a very specific way that we've learnt it via the silent retreat that we went on, and it's Vipassana Bhavana, which is a very specific type of meditation. I don't think we're going to ever do it justice to try and explain it all. For our one, it's very much a body scanning. It's realizing, it's feeling sensations without clinging or trying to avoid them. That sounds very simple, and it is very simple, but it also took us 10 days to learn. So it's everything in between.
And we're not going to perfect it until the next life,
many
or
lifetimes
whatever
away.
It was he claimed.
And that's the way that the Buddha taught, according to Goenka. He claims that he's teaching the exact thing that the Buddha taught, and it is the way that Thich Nhat Hanh describes as well. So I think if you're interested in any of that, we've discussed it, like Dave said earlier, with the podcast we did when we got back from the silent retreat. But also go read some of the books, The Heart of the Buddha's Teachings, The Miracle of Mindfulness, both by Thich Nhat Hanh, and the one that is about the Goenka stuff is called The Art of Living, Vipassana Meditation, as taught by Goenka, by a chap called William Hart. I'm just very aware that we're not describing, even though this is about mindfulness, the practice of it, if you're interested, the point, as we've described, is experiential. There's no point us describing it. We've just said that there's 1,000 books minimum that try to do that. If you're interested, go and do it, because the point is to experience it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And there's nothing wrong with starting with a handful of those sort of secular techniques, which, I mean, one of the reasons why I didn't feel the need to describe it is because I just figure everyone kind of knows what mindfulness is at this point. I mean, it's so within the popular culture. Something related, which I just want to mention, which I probably should have, it would have been a weird one to use, but I could have actually used this as my what's created a sense of awe and meaning. But you'll understand why that's weird in a second. I heard somebody say, just literally a week ago, that every mouthful of food we eat, we're supposed to chew 25 times. And I don't know if anybody else has ever heard this before or has ever tried this before, but you quickly become aware of the fact that probably most of us, depending on what you're eating maybe, but most of us chew like 4 times and then just swallow.
Cauliflower was 5. Trying to chew that 25 times was difficult.
And that was trying. So so when you weren't even thinking about it, it was probably not one.
It was just gone. Yeah, 25
you were like
chews
those,
of a cauliflower.
like those seagulls with a slice of bread.
Yeah, it was just in the throat before I even knew. Oh, God.
But I would really, ignoring what we're talking about now to some extent, I would really encourage you, if you've never heard this before or never tried this before, this might be just like common knowledge to everyone else, and this might just be how everyone eats. I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
But you should try it, and the next thing, and so the reason why this is somewhat mindful is because it does it forces you to slow down. Mm-hmm. So meals that once would have taken us however long, let's just pick a number out of whatever, let's say 10 minutes to eat. Yeah. That's probably given us justice. But a meal that would have taken 10 minutes to eat suddenly becomes a 20-minute long meal. So you're forcing yourself to not hurry, you're forcing yourself to slow down. But much more importantly, you suddenly realise that you've never tasted food before.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, I'm eating things that I've eaten hundreds of times before, and suddenly realising that after about the 15th chew, I'm noticing all sorts of different flavours that I've never had in my mouth before.
It's true. We were taught this on the silent retreat, with the day that you had to be mindful the whole day through was like mindfully eat and slow down. And I've come across it tons of times when early trying to get into Buddhism with Japanese Zen Buddhism. One of the biggest things that they pick out right away is eating. And it's very, in Japanese culture, it's very common to eat methodically, eat slowly. You kind of go around your plate. Like there's a lot of ingrained in the culture ways to slow down the eating and to really taste things.
Well, funnily enough, that actually that brings to mind the only time I've ever heard that before. I think it's in a Johann Hari book.
Yeah.
It's probably Stolen Focus. Is that one of the reasons that up until very recently, obesity just wasn't an issue in Japan was because of that exact the ritual. So that their meals always have a number of small different things, and like you say, you eat them methodically, and so it is literally just the fact that you're eating slightly slower than we eat in the West means that an entire nation has never had a problem with obesity until McDonald's suddenly turned up and it started to westernize a bit, and now they do. But that's wild if you think about it.
It is crazy, and I there's tons that comes with this. One thing links to what you just said, not just said, but said a little while ago, is about the kind of elimination of hurry sort of thing. We always think we don't have time to do these things, but when you think about really what you're asking for, like in a meal, to eat slower. I know you doubled it to 10 to 20 minutes, but realistically, you're not actually going to add that much time onto your day. Like, and it's worth doing. The amount of times we just I love when people say, I don't have time, but they spend an hour swiping on their phone. I am one. Like, everyone does this. It's kind of sad, but
not everyone, Siobhan.
Not everyone.
You don't have to do that.
Well done. No, I'm not saying we have to. What I'm saying is, it's funny when we say, I don't have time to do that thing that's going to cost 5 minutes, when you do have time to watch episode after episode of Lost.
Yeah.
So it's choosing.
I don't think anyone else
wisely.
is watching Lost, by the way. not a very current reference point, but this is where we're at.
It's just making your choices, isn't it? Like I strongly believe that it's just, you could just choose better things to do, and 5 minutes extra in the morning to go and get some fresh air, 5 minutes extra on your meal, even if it's just your evening meal. What have you done? 10 minutes? I think you can shave 10 minutes off of something else. 10 minutes off of Netflix when you get home, and 10 minutes off of staring at your phone on your work break. Like, there are ways to do it. So yeah, I think it's just making better choices. And when you live mindfully and within the Eightfold Path, you start to naturally seek those better choices because it fits with the way in which you're trying to live.
But again, they completely go against every message that we, and this isn't conspiracy. I mean, this is absolutely just self-evident.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could accuse me of saying this is a conspiracy theory. I mean, it's the opposite of every message that we're given.
Yeah.
In everything, and we've already said it. But so that's what makes it hard.
Yeah.
It's hard not to spend your evenings watching Netflix, because you not only, and it's not just that you're being told this by some corporate entity, you're also being told it by society. So when I go into work and have no idea about whatever the newest Netflix show is, or whatever happened on the news last night, or whatever, someone who's dead is normally the thing, or something that's gone viral on the social media.
Grandad eating paint,
which apparently went viral on the social media about 20 years ago. So, probably pre-social media as well. Or whatever it was back then, message boards. Does anyone else know about Grandad eating paint?
I think we talk. I feel like.
No, we've not talked about it on the podcast.
Not? I feel like it's been in my life.
shamcityroasters@gmail.com, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's discuss that meme.
Siobhan thinks I'm mad because a young person, showed me at work. I mean, not that young. Showed me at work Grandad eating paint, which apparently was one of the original memes or something. It's just an old man who's eating a whole tin of paint.
Thinking it was yogurt or something.
And Siobhan claims that she would know about it if it had really gone viral, and does not know about it, and therefore it can't. It either doesn't exist, or I can't quite remember what your argument was. Anyway, mindfully email me at shamcityroasters@gmail.com if you can.
Prove you right.
Yeah. I've completely lost my trail of thought now. So if you're completely unaware of what's going on in popular culture, and as a result of that are able to be somewhat mindful, then the society around you basically thinks you're a weirdo. But I say go for it, be a weirdo.
Yeah. If everyone does it, you won't be weird. Who does it matter?
What does it matter?
Who does it matter? What does it matter?
And also, do chew your food 25 times. Honestly, this is one of the most revolutionary things I've ever done in my life.
I can't remember what I did it with. One of the foods I was eating, and I was like, I can actually... It had loads of different things. I think I loaded my fork with loads of different things just to like...
You do that?
Test, yeah, well. Just to test myself / I like to make mini meals on each fork. And I could taste absolutely every different thing. It was really interesting. Whereas usually it's just a big mash that goes in my mouth.
It's a very different experience. So another thing I just wanted to bring up is the connection, or possibly not. I don't know what you think about this. We've talked about flow in the past. We've talked about, and that sort of, this is possibly moving into what we're going to be talking about on the next episode, which is concentration. So maybe it's more to do with concentration than mindfulness. But I feel like there's certain states that we get into that by default we are just mindful. And flow, to me, certainly my experience of what I think is flow, but again, flow is another an example of something else which is impossible to describe, and so you've kind of just got to assume whether you've experienced it or not.
A man with a lovely Russian name wrote a massive book on it, so he's described it, but it took a long time.
He has, but I don't imagine that I would understand if I read the book any better. No. So yeah, there's a lot of brain science behind it, but it's brain science, guys. But yeah, that's another interesting one, is that, and that's something about habit as well, isn't it? So, and this has something to do with following the other aspects of the Eightfold Path, leading, so you don't really have to put the effort into being mindful. Yeah. Because if you're doing right effort, for example, and you're really putting everything into the thing that you're working on, or to some extent right livelihood, and you're really putting loads of effort into the job that you're doing, then by default you will have periods of mindfulness just completely naturally.
Well, this is, so flow, some would say a meditative state. I think I read in one of the books earlier that the aim is to be in a, monks go for being in some sort of trance, which I think is called jhana. Going further along, you've got nirvana, which is like stepping off this wheel entirely within Buddhism. Yeah, I think that's all really linked together. I can definitely see the link between flow and... you hear like meditative trance, quite a lot of meditative state, and I wonder what the difference technically. There's lots of science that has been going on linking, not scanning people, but like probing people's brains. Not probing. When you attach all the electrodes to people's brains and you can see their brain activity when they're meditating. I think it's called MMRs. Don't know. Peeping on brains while they're meditating, and I wonder what the similarities between people's brain scans on meditating and when they're in the flow state, because both have been investigated separately, and I'm sure there's people that are putting them both together. But flow is still quite relatively new in this kind of field, as is scientifically looking at meditation. Well,
flow is an idea, but I mean flow has happened to people.
Oh, of course,
since time immemorial. In fact, you could argue that probably before society ruined us all, everyone was in flow all of the time. I mean, what is that? I'm doing it again, but what is the Garden of Eden? The Garden of Eden is humanity without time and without society being without perfect,
self-awareness.
But
I think that's definitely good popping off points for when we do right concentration. I never really considered the flow part of it being linked to meditating, but now I'm saying that, I'm like, it's completely obvious.
Yeah. So that's probably more moving on to what we're going to be talking about in the next episode, which will be the final part.
I know.
And about concentration.
It's been a long journey.
It has. You've really had to slow down.
No, but I really like it. I feel like I think we've been quite clear that this podcast it's lovely that everyone's listening. Everyone, all of you people are listening. But we do this quite for us to explore all of these topics as well. Like, we don't necessarily know what we're talking about. I don't know if that's obvious, but by the experience of speaking about them this way, we're learning about it. So
it's a podcast about trying.
Exactly. And I feel like this is the best I've understood the Eightfold Path. I've read about it so many times, and I hope that it'll continue going in my brain. I just wanted to finish with a few more quotes from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, because the way he sums up his chapter on mindfulness has loads of lovely little sentences that sum up this ineffable thing that we're trying to describe. When we practice mindfulness, we are in contact with life, and we can offer our love and compassion to lessen the suffering and bring joy and happiness to others. Do not lose yourself in the past. Do not lose yourself in the future. Do not get caught in your anger, worries, or fears. Come back to the present moment and touch life deeply. This is mindfulness. And then, just to get real surreal for just 1 second, he then, right at the end, decides to bring up the Bodhisattvas. And I just wanted to mention one because we would have mentioned these people like quite some time ago. But he talks about
these
mysterious Buddhist beings. But he talks about the idea of practicing mindfulness is to practice our Buddha energy and to be more like the Buddha. And this is relatable to Christianity. You're trying to live as, as God, or like in God's image and all this sort of stuff. So again, everyone's saying the same sort of things. But then he starts talking about look deeply into your hand and see if the Buddha eye is there. In Buddhism, and he says Tibetan, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, there is a bodhisattva with 1,000 arms, because it takes that many arms to help others. And in the palm of each hand, there is an eye. The hand represents action and the eye represents insight and understanding. And so that sums up the whole point of mindfulness, and it having those three folds, being about wisdom, being about morality, and being about practice. But also, I just love it because it's the Bodhisattva.
That's our Bodhisattva, isn't it?
Avalokitestra. What up? If you don't know that story, go and look it up because it's amazing.
I think we've talked about it on here
I think
before.
we have, yeah. And one last little bit. Mindfulness is the energy that brings the eyes of the Buddhas into our hands. With mindfulness, we can change the world and bring happiness to many people. This is not abstract. I repeat, this crazy fucking weird thing with 1,000 arms and eyes in your hands and this ineffable thing we can't describe is not abstract, don't worry. It is possible for every one of us to generate the energy of mindfulness in each moment of our daily life. And I just really like all of that.
Well, that concentrates on one other thing that we've barely touched on, although we have touched on it in previous episodes about this Eightfold Path, is that, so this is the important bit about how self-improvement, doing stuff to make you better and make your life better, the only reason to do that is so that you can then be a better person with other people.
Yeah.
And so that you can help other people, so that you can, and again, this is Jesus' message. I mean, it's literally the same in every religion.
Yeah.
And if you think about mindfulness in those terms, how much better of a friend are you going to be if you're being mindful with the person who you're a friend with? If just in any conversation or in any scenario, if you're mindfully going about your life, then you're automatically going to relate better with other people, because 100%. You're going to be in the moment more, and you're going to be with them more, and you're going to be experiencing them more. And that's not just in an intellectual capacity, I don't think. It's also, again, it's that physical thing. It's being there. And not, of course, you're there anyway. So it's similar to doing the washing up. If you're with someone, you might as well fully be with someone. Yeah. There's no point in being with someone and then thinking to yourself about something you saw on your phone, or getting your phone out and flicking through it, or concentrating on other people in the room. You're there. If you're being mindful, you're going to be a better person to be with.
100%.
And I bring that up mostly because of our recent date nights that we've implemented now.
But it's also just take this out of Buddhism for a bit, because you said something about it being, you can intellectually do this, you can just feel it this way. This is coming up and maybe this is confirmation bias, but this comes up everywhere. I'm currently reading a book called Crucial Conversations, which is very much aimed at, corporate world, but they specifically say this is not just like a way to manage people better. You can use it in every aspect of life. And it's about what makes a crucial conversation, and why are some people really good at it and some people terrible at it. And I'm very not far through the book. Wow, that's not good English. I'm not very good at crucial conversations. I know. But the early on bit is about getting in touch with controlling your emotions to realise what is actually happening in a conversation. And this comes, this is mindfulness. It's realising what's really there and what's within you and what is not in that other person, so that you can really be there in that conversation and really be with that person. Because if you let your emotions get in control of you, you go, you're making me feel this way, and you detach from them. No, you're the only person in control of your emotions. The only thing you can change is yourself. But the purpose of changing yourself is to have a better communication with that other person. And so I think that sums up, in a weird way, like you just said, the point of self-improvement is to be more really there with other people and really connect to other people and really be useful and serve other people. That's the only point. If you sit there worrying about how you're going to be affected or you make me feel this way, you're just furthering your disconnection with people.
We've talked about psychological transference before, and I think, having just listened to you then, I think I've come to a conclusion about something.
Oh, gosh.
Enlightenment is just, if you get to a point where you're aware of what you're transferring to somebody else, because that's because it's so ephemeral. If you can get to a point, and maybe this is impossible, and maybe enlightenment is impossible, but if you can get to a point where you are aware of your own transference, what you're giving out as well as what's coming in, that to me is about as wise as you can be.
Exactly.
There you go. So that's not a lot, guys. 2 weeks in the next 10 days or 14 days. If you could just sort that out, that would be great.
Yeah, go on, guys.
So we'll call it a day there, shall we?
Yeah, I reckon so.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. As we always say, we don't bother telling anyone about this podcast. We're not on social media or anything else. So if you wanted to tell anybody on our behalf who you think would like it, that would be wonderful. Thank you for tuning in, despite our lack of pushing. Is pushing the right word? I don't know.
Yeah, no, why not?
You can contact us on shamcityroasters@gmail.com. It's the only thing that email address is being used for now.
I was about to say, Sham City no more.
Dead.
And
we will be back in 2 weeks' time, every other Thursday.
Yeah.
Although it looks like we might be missing one, but we'll deal with that.
We'll get to that. A few episodes away, don't you worry about that.
Have a lovely couple of weeks, you lovely mindful Buddhas.
Bunch.
Enlightened,
the Buddha bunch.
Enlightened, non-transferring humans. And we will see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.